All right, well, hello, everybody. Let me change to gallery view. Welcome to another after church tea time for our Sunday sermon. This week's topic was how giving yourself attention serves everyone. And I really loved this sermon. Sorry, let me just. Okay. And yeah, perfect. So I really loved this topic because it's something that I think the whole community is going deeper with right now, is how to give yourself attention and how to, I guess, like manage that, manage your life, fill up your cup so you're not running on empty or constantly seeking that outside of yourself from others or, things. So yeah, like it was really valuable. I found it really healing. I loved Adam and Brienne's very like gentle, nurturing reminders, that it's safe to give yourself attention and it's necessary to give yourself attention. So yeah, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and feelings about the sermon too.
Hello, everyone. Hi. I found the sermon very healing as well. It reminds me of the divine order that you have to put God first, then yourself, and then everybody else, because when you're not filling yourself up, you can't actually love others. And very helpful to receive the message of coming back to the basics. And yeah, that was what stood out for me, that you really have to have this reminder that it's safe to put yourself first and fill yourself up, that you act out of peace and not out of stress in that way.
Yeah, I completely agree, especially with building a divine community and organization. You have to, love yourself first. Like this is not like a, corporate job where you just kind of set like your whole life's on fire, but you're just, one part of your life is good, but maybe like your health is not so good or your personal relationships are not so good. Like unionism teaches to have all of those things handled. And so, yeah, like it's about giving yourself attention. Like Jeff and Julia say in their meditation CD, like giving or loving yourself means paying attention to yourself, in all the areas of your life. So yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the Bible verse that Adam picked out as well. The do not conform to the world, but be transformed, essentially. And I always enjoy like hearing Bible verses and like going back to Bible verses now that I'm on this path and in this work, because it's very different than how I was raised and like how I related to religion as a child. And so to be able to come back to those verses that are very familiar, but also to be able to connect with them in a way where I actually understand them and like see the truth in them is really almost like comforting to me, because I'm like, oh, like that's what that means. Like, I get it. Because a lot of times I feel like when we are doing this work and loving ourselves and giving ourselves attention, it feels wrong because it's not what everyone else is doing, right? So there's that confirmation, like conforming piece of it, of really like being so deeply rooted in your peace and in the work that you don't necessarily care what everyone else is doing because you're guided by your own inner light essentially at that point. And, you're really confidently shining that regardless of what everyone else is doing around you, which might feel wonky or awkward at first as you're really getting used to standing in your power in that way. And so that was like, it really deeply resonated with me and like what I'm going through in my journey right now of just understanding that it doesn't matter what everyone else is doing because I'm not here to do that. So yeah, that just really, like, it was very comforting to me to be able to connect with that message as I was listening to the sermon.
I love that. I like that you bring up, conforming, because I think for me, I was kind of raised that like paying attention to yourself is selfish and like
Yeah.
bad, and like you don't take selfies or look at yourself in the mirror too much, like I had like family members who were that way. And yeah, like it's, I don't know, it's just healing, to know that it's the opposite. Like it's safe to love and care for yourself, and that's really what you want. You don't actually want other people's attention. It's your own inner attention. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me what comes up with this is because I also grow up with that belief, I guess, of like not paying attention to yourself, but instead giving all of it to others. It's all in the external, it's all in other people, and by the end of the day, you feel so drained and empty, emotionally feeling bad, because you didn't put yourself as a priority. And every time you do that, you are egocentric, you are selfish, you are all of these things. And I guess for me, this is one of the things that I love about this teaching, is how you put yourself first all the time. And you realize that that is the most loving thing for everyone involved. No one loses because you are putting yourself first. Everyone wins. Maybe in the external doesn't look that way, but in truth, you are serving everyone by serving yourself. Yeah, it's very cool that no one needs to lose with God. Everyone can benefit.
Yeah, when everyone is responsible for giving themselves like
Yeah.
love and attention, then we can all live in that space and have like healthy, constructive relationships. So yeah, it's a win-win.
Mhm.
I love what you shared. Thank you. I wrote myself down that the reminder that God fills you up and that not others are your source of confirmation or that you're loving in that way, because you can ask yourself what you need when you do that, when you don't put yourself first. And sometimes it's kind of like, okay, did I serve you? Are you satisfied? But it's not about you satisfy others. It's about you filling up yourself and love people and not making yourself as the source of others' satisfaction or of others' appreciation or attention. And this is the cycle which has to be broken, that you can actually be at peace so that they can feel peace and loved through God, through you. And yeah, God is your source and God fills you up. And this is what stood out for me. And yeah, as Jose said, we were raised that way, that you have to not put yourself first and not give yourself attention, because this is humility, but it isn't actually humility. It's, yeah, a false belief of humility to put yourself on the last place and multitask and do everything for others and not for God in the first place, and see that others are divine and that you are divine.
Yeah, what's coming up for me is like the contrast of that. Like, what happens if you don't? What happens if you don't put yourself first? What happens if you are constantly seeking that attention from other people? And the example that came up to me as I was considering that was like when I was pregnant and taking like prenatal vitamins and everything, I was like, oh, I have to do this and I have to eat that and I have to blah, 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 because the baby needs all of these things, right? And I was so focused on like what the baby needs. And my doctor kind of like laughed at me and she was like, dude, that baby's going to take whatever it needs from you. Like, it doesn't matter what you give it. It's just going to take that from you if you're not giving it to that. That's why so many like people who have babies end up with like nutrient deficiencies and stuff, because the baby will take whatever it needs, whether or not you're giving it that thing, right? And we're a lot the same way, right? that's where that comes from, of like seeking attention outside of ourselves. Like we're going to need to fulfill our needs. And if we're not doing it, by going to source to have our needs fulfilled, we're going to be sucking that out of like the relationships around us, the people around us. Like it's not going to feel good to them or us. Like it's so, so important that we do put ourselves first, because it improves everything in our lives, our relationships with people, our relationships with ourselves, our relationships with our children and with our coworkers. Like it makes such a huge difference when we are fulfilling those needs and we're focused on fulfilling those needs so that we can enjoy that peace that comes with not being needy, right?
That's a great point. I didn't know that about babies and nutrients, but that makes sense. Like we need what we need, we're gonna get it whatever way. Otherwise, like that's kind of something Adam and Brianne said, is you start to develop like health issues and relationship issues and like deficiencies. So at some point you're gonna have to like give yourself what you need. And Brianne talked about that, like finally having to go to the doctor because she got sick. And then after that, she has to have some downtime. So it's like you kind of fall behind anyway. So you might as well just develop like that like self-responsibility of giving yourself what you need when you need it, so you don't end up having to like crash and burn and get sick, and yeah, like I think that's a really great point. And it's also in just like all the little things in your life, like you have to pay attention to all the details. Like I guess what comes up for us is like, we've been going through the whole immigration process, and that's so essential to like our well-being. And it's the kind of thing that's like paperwork, lawyers, appointments, lines, all of these things. But it feels so good to like actually have that handled. And then, that happens. And then for us, like the next piece is now we have to, get the tax situation sorted between two countries. And then we're like, we just finished one piece, but now here's like the next piece. But you need that, we need that for our foundation and our security. So it's like the kind of thing like, you have to be mature and handle those like little details, like pay attention to your life, like the whole foundation, not just one part of it, but every single part of your life. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny to me too, like how we resist that, right? How we're like, oh no, not more paperwork, not more this, not more that. When like it gives so much to us once we just like cut the shit and do it. Like we feel so much better. It's such a huge sense of relief. Like it's like every little thing that you complete on your to-do list to strengthen your foundation gives back to you so much more, and continues giving back to you. That it's like really loving yourself in that place is so important.
I don't know, Nicole. Well, I'll just say my thing really quick. Yeah, like it's important because whatever you're not completing, like your energy is still going there, and so it's like an energy leak. And then you can't like fully grow, properly in your life. And like, health issues, dental issues, like whatever it is, if it's not resolved, it's taking. Yeah, it's taking from you, And so, yeah, it's important to handle those things and not like look to other people to handle them for you, or like expect that. And that was, a big part of the sermon is like, you have to be responsible for those things, but it really makes you feel so much better, Yeah.
Because it's supposed to give to you. I was just watching a Tipas class, and Jeff was talking about if God is giving you something to complete and you don't complete it, you are missing a ton of good. You are missing it, and it's going away, and you are not really respecting the good that God is giving you. So that's why it's important to pay attention to your reality constantly, to yourself, to get things moving, because you are supposed to be in that flow of energy and feeling good and feeling alive, not feeling stuck or feeling dead or drained or bad in general.
So valuable. Thank you. I had to sit with this. But Glenville shared at the beginning that it's decluttering, that when you pay attention to those places where your thoughts are moving and your mind is moving you, that it's automatically clearing out your reality. The inner creates the outer. So you have to go to those places where you feel stagnant and not alive and not giving yourself attention, to have those action steps in the reality and take those action steps. It's not about I do all the things outside of myself and avoid feeling how I feel in those places. So yeah, it's decluttering your thoughts and decluttering your feelings about that.
Yeah, that's so important, because I think we flip-flop it a lot of times, where we're like, oh, I can't look at this right now because it'll take up a lot of energy and I need my energy to do this other thing. And once I finish this other thing, then I'll look at it. And we're just like shooting ourselves in the foot, essentially, because having that thing hanging out in our consciousness is what's draining our energy away, right? So by looking at it and addressing it, we actually get the energy to do all of the other things that we're like, oh, but I have to do this, right? So it's really just that perspective shift of understanding that we're tired because we're not like in the flow. And once we reconnect with the flow, like the energy returns, and then there's plenty of energy to do all of the things.
Yeah, I feel like it's, you know, giving yourself energy is just connecting with God and knowing like, yeah, like that's enough. You know, you don't need to seek it from outside of you. I think that's like one of the biggest lies that we learn, is that, you know, your own attention and God's attention isn't enough and you have to seek it everywhere else. But that's not the truth. And yeah, like doing the things that you're called to do is part of growing, you know, like growing your foundation, because, you know, what the world teaches us is like, take from all the areas in your life and focus it here, and this part of your life will grow, but the rest of it is like terrible.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so this is like what unionism teaches you, is to grow all the areas of your life, you know, and sometimes you don't have enough energy to grow in one area, but like what you're focused on now will expand into that.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it's just about, you know, filling up your cup and being joyful. And I liked, you know, I always love when Adam and Brienne talk about their morning routines. Like,
Yeah.
they're the ones, they're like my inspiration when it comes to that, because we're working on a morning routine.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I really liked, because I remember at the beginning we were pretty bad at morning routines. We were like, do whatever is in your plate, wake up, boom, get to work, and
Yeah.
it drains you. And yeah, recently we have been exploring having like morning time, self-care time before anything else, before starting to work, starting to do other things. And it's like Adam said, it's your time with God, no social media,
Mhm.
no work, no stuff, and you can be present and fill your cup. And every time you do that, it feels so good. And you enter work from a place of peace, not from a place of, oh, I'm exhausted. Let's drain myself to do this. No, it's like, I have the energy, let's love this that I have in front of me. And it feels very good when you are properly supporting yourself before the work, in the middle of it, and having that balance. It really makes you provide a lot of love and value to everything you do, because you are feeling good all day. You are not in a constant drain until you go to bed. You can maintain the good feeling with you. And that is, yeah, very good spaces
Mhm.
to have.
I definitely notice a difference for us on days when we have like a morning routine,
Mhm.
like in master that, like I feel so happy
Yeah.
and like we can perform so much better. It's really amazing. So yeah, and what was coming up when you're sharing is people, I feel like we manifest, like, for example, getting sick because as a child, for me anyway, like that was one of the only ways to get attention from my family. It's like you get sick and then you can stay home and they make you food, and it's like, and so I feel like we can tend to have that pattern in like our adult lives. But if you just give yourself all the attention that you need all the way along, by taking care of yourself in all the ways, all the time, like you don't have to wait to get sick to give yourself like the nurturing and the love that you need, or to receive that from other people. You can just feel fulfilled there, and then you can grow beyond wherever you're at. It's really important.
I had this pattern when it came down to rest. I need to be sick to rest, or I need the weekend to rest. And all the things had to be done beforehand before I can rest. But when you're at peace, you have this rest right now, and you don't have to experience contrast to experience rest, because doing what you love and loving people and being at peace is having your cup filled up.
For me, with my morning routine, I realized that part of my morning routine was my nightly routine because they really feed one right into the next, right? If you don't have a nightly routine, your morning routine is going to be inconsistent. At least it was for me. And so really setting myself up for success in that way of having a nightly routine that then like allows the morning routine to flow was a game changer for me. And so I noticed like when my nightly routine is off, my morning routine is off, because it's like that rest cycle, right? If you're not getting the rest that your body needs, then maintaining a routine is very difficult. And there's a lot of contrast there. And that's when I would see like sickness crop up, or like that lack of motivation, because I wasn't allowing myself to rest in the way that I needed to in order to like really do all of the things that I was called to do. So yeah, for me, just that night routine was the key piece of maintaining my morning routine. And so I think it's very important that we set ourselves up in that way and really focus on giving ourselves that attention and that self-love, and making sure that like we have everything that we need in order to be productive and be able to do the things that are on our plate,
What came up for me is about deservingness as well, that you deserve feeling good. And Brienne shared that she found places inside of herself where she had not good thoughts about herself. And in loving those areas, she healed that and came to just loved herself there. And it's safe to acknowledge that you deserve love and that you are divine.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I like that they talked about that, like clearing out those thoughts where you don't feel like you deserve to give yourself love or attention, and healing those. And then I liked where Adam and Brienne talked about the water thing, or like those studies where they say nice or mean things, to the water or like ice, and it really does, it changes like the molecular structure of the water. And our bodies are like, I don't know, you said 80%, but I thought it was 70% water. So I don't know, our bodies are made of mostly like water. And so, like we want to nurture our thoughts and our feelings and how we think about ourselves. Like it really matters. And like it's safe to let go of like nasty thoughts about ourselves.
Yeah, and release any resistance we may have to have a proper self-care and giving ourselves the attention. I remember in my case at the beginning, every time I needed to give myself something nice, whatever it was, time with myself, self-care, or anything, I had this bad feeling of like, no, don't take it. Work more, put more output. But it's not about that.
Mhm.
It's about, yeah, you deserve that. You need this. It's not, like, oh, I don't need this, but I will do it. No, it's a necessity. When you are actually wanting to go deeper with your life, you need to be properly supported. And yeah, it's important to release all of those feelings of I don't deserve this, or not yet, or I haven't done this yet. Like, follow God only, and God will support you properly. It's about surrendering to that flow and not resisting. When God is calling you to rest, for example, or to work, or to play, or do whatever in your life, if you surrender, you have everything done, everything feels good, and you feel with a lot of energy to move your life along.
Yeah, and I liked when Brienne shared the post that she wrote about giving yourself attention and how when you give yourself the attention that you need, your inner like attention deficit is fulfilled and you feel totally happy and secure within yourself. And when you feel totally happy and secure within yourself, like you feel pretty powerful. You know, like you don't feel like, I feel like it heals a lot. You're gonna feel more confident in your life and in your work. And yeah, like there's strength in that. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I really loved that they related it to the studies on water too. And also, I think she mentioned the plants of, speaking to plants and that kind of sound therapy essentially, or sound healing, is something that really resonates with me. And I remember that was always like a science fair experiment as a kid where they would play like different kinds of music to plants to see what would happen. Right. And I think a lot of times we do that unknowingly to ourselves of like, we'd listen to our mood music, right? Or like when we're happy, we're listening to happy music. And when we're sad, we're listening to sad music. And when we're angry, we're listening to like metal or whatever it is, you know what I mean? But we're like reinforcing that vibration. And what I noticed is like when I'm like in a place of upset or when I'm not like giving myself what I need, I'm like reinforcing that with like music that's not uplifting or like that matches whatever like my angry vibration is. And I have this huge resistance to listening to like calm, peaceful music, for instance. Or like I have a lot of resistance to like listening to a meditation because I'm resisting feeling better. Right. I just want to sit in my shit essentially. And so like something that I notice that really helps me is to like when I'm feeling like I don't have the motivation to like move forward or like work through what I'm feeling, I can change like what I'm inputting, like what I'm listening to, and really like release resistance and listen to a meditation when I'm feeling out of sorts or like chaotic, or like taking the time to listen to like an uplifting playlist. I've like created these playlists where I know when I'm like in a funk, like I can put on this playlist and like reestablish that like peace and work through my feelings instead of resisting it and just like blaring whatever and staying in that feeling. It's really just about giving yourself the tools to move through whatever it is that you need to move through, whether it's through like sound or exercise or whatever it is, to get that energy unstuck instead of staying in that place. That's part of that attention, right? Of understanding that we're not that much different than the house plant, right? We need to have that input in order to grow. We need to have those like positive experiences and that self-love to move forward. And we have the power to give ourselves that no matter how out of sorts we're feeling.
Thank you. What came up in my mind when you talked about attention and giving yourself the attention, it's also a very vulnerable space when you're maybe hurt in that, when you maybe have the experience of getting attention, and getting attention is a bad thing, or maybe you were exposed and kind of hurt in that space. It's you have to walk the path again until you have healed the lesson, and also love yourself there where you're hurt in order to move through that. And I love, as Adam and Brian shared, that Shalia, when she gets attention, gives it back to God. I guess it was in the Romans of Sedona. So because it's God, and this helped me to recognize, okay, it's not my attention. It's not supposed to be on me. I can give it up, and I can be just, is this a word, a vessel, just to keep the energy flowing and moving, and really be at my peace, and just love myself there and let God in where I felt hurt, and not repeat the cycle of the codependent who's giving whom attention and love and all of this kind of toxicity. Does it make sense?
Yeah, that reminds me of something that Jeff actually said once. I don't know where, a post I think somewhere where, or a comment in the forum, like that attention is literally a limitless resource, you know, but you give it to yourself, and that it's like the most valuable thing is receiving attention. But the secret is that you give it to yourself, and then and then I love that you mentioned the part about giving it back to God, because it's not about you or any person, like it is about God.
Yeah.
And God is the source of all of the good things about us, you know, and so it's safe to like give that back to God instead of making it about us. I think that was really healing.
Yeah, I also think it like places the importance like where it needs to be placed as well, because a lot of times it's like, oh, that person like loved me or gave me this attention or like did something for me, and now I need to repay them, right? And that's like where that codependency comes from, of like it becomes like quid pro quo essentially. But if the flow is, you know, that what you receive you give back to God, and you know God sends you whatever it is that you need through other people, it removes that entirely and allows for that like non-attachment and that flow to stay in flow state, instead of like attaching and making people your source, or you being the source for other people. It really like keeps the focus on God and on source and on love essentially, instead of on people or relationships.
Yeah, I love that. And that actually reminds me of that Adam and Brian mentioned that they were reflecting over Romance in Sedona. And that reminds me of something that Jeff said in Romance in Sedona was like it takes a very, I don't know what the word he used, but like a really admirable person to be able to like accept how divine and amazing they are, but still be humble about it, you know, by knowing that it's like it's God and it's God's glory and it's God's creation, the reason why you are so amazing and divine. You know, it's not like it's nothing about, it's not like, you know, you're not special, like everyone is that way. And so I always think about that, about how humility is like the key to in being able to give yourself all that attention and receive the attention. So it's like a necessary part of that to keep that flow going, you know. Yeah, it's
gratitude to God and everything that He's giving you, and not, oh, I did it myself alone.
And then you forget God.
And then you forget God, and everything is like very bad to the relationship. It's very uncomfortable to believe that. And there is great relief into, it's God, not me. Take that burden out of me. And it's God.
Mhm.
And it's a privilege to be the channel for that moving through you, or for that gift moving through you. But yeah, it's like giving back, and it feels very good to even have that possibility of loving God back in that way. So yeah, it feels very good to surrender into that space and yeah, giving back.
Yeah, and is like that saying that appreciation is the highest form of love
Gratitude.
or gratitude,
Yeah.
well, the same, gratitude and appreciation, and yeah, like getting to know your true divine self and giving yourself all the attention that you
Mhm.
need, leads you to like, yeah, like discover yourself. And there's
Yeah.
a class where Jeff says this, like, as you start to get to know yourself, you start to get to know God and how amazing God is, because he created you, and you find out that you're really amazing. But yeah, like it's God, you know, it's supposed to lead you to deeper gratitude and appreciation for God.
Mhm.
I think that's, yeah, beautiful. Do we feel complete? Does anyone have other thoughts, or we can check comments? No comment, just people. Hello, everyone, just
I was just
watching.
gonna say, like, to go along with that, it's like a perspective shift of like when you've given your gift and receive like attention or praise or like love for giving your gift, to have that internal dialogue of you know, it's because I've been so blessed, right? Instead of, well, it's because I worked so hard, or because I did this or did that. You know, it's important that we keep in mind that in truth, the reason we're able to give that gift is because we've been so blessed.
And we're loved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have anything more?
I feel I don't have like anything specifically. Do you guys have other more thoughts or questions or insights that you received from today's sermon? Yeah, I think I feel complete.
Yeah, it's complete.
Yeah, and I want to thank you guys for joining us, and Adam and Brienne for this sermon, which was very on time and a beautiful sermon. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next after church tea time and next week for the sermon.
Bye.
Bye.